Randi Zuckerberg, come on up.
Thank you. Let's see. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. I don't know if any of you have heard the Weird Al Yankovic rendition of I Want It That Way, but I bought it on eBay, and it's very hilarious, so I would recommend to all of you to download it. My name is Randi Zuckerberg. Really excited to be here. Am I very echoey? I feel very echoey.
Seems a little echoey.
So as I'm thrilled to be here and in discussions with Mika about what we were going to talk about, I figured, why not open this morning with world peace? Why not? And we're talking about, Facebook, third biggest country in the world, if it was a country, and the impact that can actually have on people as we're looking at the technology and the data. So I wanted to share with you an initiative that we launched roughly a year ago, where that's going, and where I'd love to take this with all of you in the audience here.
Hold 1 sec. Can we have our slides, please? Yeah.
Drum roll.
There we go.
Wonderful. So again, besides being something that pageant beauty queens use to talk about, what is world peace really? It's a very elusive concept. It's something that we have often left to governments to negotiate peace treaties. But with all of the technology that we have at our disposal, there's so much more that we can do. So we have these things called hackathons at Facebook where people get together and for about 24 hours straight, they'll work on something that's a real passion for them. It has to be completely unrelated to their day-to-day job. So my day-to-day job, I lead our consumer marketing team. I focus a lot on our brand, on on-air partnerships, marketing partnerships, new product launches. But for a little sliver of my time, my true passion is really focused on nonprofits, philanthropic efforts, social movements on Facebook. So a few of us got together and thought, how can we leverage what we're seeing, all the data on Facebook, to actually quantify world peace? We developed this site, peace.facebook.com, and just to take you through a little more of what it is, our vision was really that we wanted to promote peace by building technology that helps people better understand each other. Right? Facebook's mission has always been openness and connection, and by enabling people from backgrounds all over the world to connect, we can actually potentially decrease conflict in the world in both the short and the long term. The Peace Dot movement is actually something that's bigger. We partnered with Stanford's Persuasive Technology Labs, and what the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab is they study computers and the effect that computers have, both websites and mobile devices, on actually affecting people's behaviors. Professor B.J. Fogg, who's the leader of this initiative, is actually pioneering a new emerging field that focuses on computers as a persuasive technology. So this was actually part of a bigger movement that they called Peace Dot, where they tried to get as many big companies as they could to actually create a peace subdomain. And now what we did, peace.facebook.com, consists of a few things. At the top of the page, you'll see some great examples of nonviolent peace movements, but really the crux of the page is that we actually take a look at very unlikely friendships that are happening on the site. So we'll look at people in Israel and Palestine becoming friends on Facebook, people in India and Pakistan, Greece and Turkey, etc. And we'll actually map in a 24-hour window how many people are friending one another on the site in these regions. So these are the fall 2000 numbers from about a year ago when we first launched the site. And what you'll see is that we're now up to about 35,000 connections. We've seen a 5x increase in India, Pakistan. We actually just announced 15 million users, Facebook users, in India just last week. And the countries that you're seeing here, this is not a trivial makeup of Facebook. This is probably roughly 15% of the Facebook user base that you're seeing. So this is extremely fast-growing regions for us, and regions where we can actually see changes happening. Not only are we mapping geographical friendships and differences, but we're also looking at religious differences, and we're looking at political differences. Right now this is US only, but we have plans to expand and look at political differences worldwide. And just a few of our favorite examples that are featured on the page. The People's March Against Knife Crime in London, which gained a lot of popularity and movement on Facebook. Invisible Children in Uganda, and my favorite example, No Mas FARC in Colombia, where Oscar Morales was able to mobilize 12 million people around the world to all protest against violence happening in the country. We also have a link on there to an initiative we just launched to celebrate our 500 million user mark, which was enabling people all around the world to share stories of the impact they've had. Now, I know I've been so inspired by so many of you and the stories that you've shared with me about how you're using technology to inspire impact in your countries, your organizations. And we've now collected more than 10,000 stories around the world of people doing similar things. Finally, the last thing that you'll see on peace.facebook.com is a daily poll that we run. So every single day on the site, we ask thousands of people, do you think world peace is possible 50 years from now? And the results are actually really interesting. Because how do we stack up in optimism? What we saw is that the USA is actually at the bottom of the optimism chain, whereas you see Israel is about 2 times more optimistic than the US and Germany that world peace is possible, and you have Egypt and Colombia extremely optimistic. So hopefully this is just a catalyst for future discussion on the topic, but I truly believe that initiatives like this are social networking at its best when we can really leverage friendships and data to make real impact in the world. So thank you, and now we will turn to our fireside chat.
Come sit here.
Okay, thanks.
So that's really fascinating stuff. I want to ask you a couple of questions just about the data, and then we'll pull back.
Great.
But just to clarify for people so we understand what we're looking at. So, for example, these are people you know live in these countries, or they just list the country as...
That's right. No, it's done by IP address.
Okay.
And so this probably makes up almost 40 million Facebook users.
Okay. And so, for example, the Israel-Palestinian one, are we talking about people who live... I mean, are we sure I think some people have asked about this question, if people there are maybe Israeli Arabs friending Palestinians, and also the Palestinian community is dispersed. It's not just in the West Bank and Gaza. So how concrete is that data, and can you separate that out?
I think that's definitely something that we want to do. Right now, you're right, it is not separated out that way.
Okay, so there could be...
Yeah, it definitely could be room for multiple interpretations.
And I noticed on one of the earlier graphs, I think it was the India-Pakistan chart, sort of went like this, and then there was a big drop for like a week or so, and then it went back up. Is that a data glitch, or did
Probably a data glitch on our side.
Okay. So is there a team inside Facebook that's going to continue to grow this project? And is there a way for people who are interested in this to plug in, to get involved and maybe deepen not just the information sharing, but also maybe help you improve the work that you've started?
That's a great idea.
How do people plug in?
Yeah, so I think when we started this, we really wanted to show this as almost an example of what could be built on the platform with access to all the data we have. So we would love if anyone is interested in working with us on this initiative. We would love the help, but also I think it's a great example of what any developer can build on their own and to showcase the data on their own website.
Is that right? So this is built off the Facebook API?
That's right. So even just a kind of slightly different example of this, around the World Cup, we actually saw the New York Times had this beautiful visualization on their site of how people were what people were talking about day to day around the World Cup, and kind of what countries were becoming friends with one another around some of the key matches. And they did a beautiful visualization on their site.
So have you been, I mean, I don't know whether you have the time to watch this closely, but you know, whether the team that's working on this, it looks great on the surface, but do we have any idea what's going on in these connections, in these conversations between people? I mean, this is a phenomenon that goes beyond Facebook. I remember during the last war that Israel and Lebanon fought with each other, there were bloggers from both sides in contact, even by instant messaging, while the conflict was going on. And I guess the question is, you know, I mean, it's a funny thing about Facebook, right? You know, I have, if I want to be on Sarah Palin's page, I have to like her. I don't necessarily like her, but I do want to follow what she's saying. And so the like term is a little bit,
we're definitely experimenting with some other terminology besides just like maybe support or follow or words like that, because obviously you don't like everything that you want to follow.
Right. So the reason I'm asking this is there a way to figure out when, say, someone from Greece and someone from Turkey are friending each other, if they're actually in friendship as opposed to in conflict?
Yeah.
Do you guys have a way, is there a way for us to see in what's going on there?
That's an interesting one. I guess it depends on the individual privacy settings of the users, but people who do set their status to everyone, we can actually map what they're talking about.
Okay.
But I have a kind of funny story on that topic, actually. This was about right after we met 2 years ago. I went on to speak at the World Economic Forum. Actually, I was not supposed to be speaking at the World Economic Forum, but I went to do some marketing partnerships for Facebook. We were running polls, actually, in a bunch of sessions. And one of the sessions had kind of leading world religious leaders from all over the world on this panel. And all of a sudden, the moderator's like, Randi Zuckerberg, is that you in the back of the room? Can you come up here? And put this slide up of these groups on Facebook that they had found that were basically like, I don't like Judaism, I don't like Islam, all these religious groups. And we ended up having this incredible discussion about how this actually presented an opportunity for these religious leaders to go on and speak to thousands of people all at once and engage people in discussion and debate rather than kind of running from that.
So let's pull back a little bit. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I want to make sure the audience, if you have questions, start thinking of them. So Facebook de facto is being used by people with all kinds of causes. Formal organizations are just a fraction of the amount of cause-related conversation, group formation, all of that. How does an organizer, an activist, deal with questions they have to Facebook about your policies for managing a group? Is there a dedicated part of your customer service that people can go to? Because people have issues with, you know, a group will suddenly be frozen, an account will be frozen. How do people work with that? Because I know you're managing a huge amount of traffic all at once, and you can't possibly have a human being dealing with every complaint instantly, but what's the system for that?
Well, I guess for the people in this room, I would appreciate if maybe you didn't tweet this out, but we do have a VIP customer support line for those of you who are managing high-profile pages for your organization. So you can always email pagesvip@facebook.com to get more immediate help. Okay.
Okay. So that you realize that people, I mean, the infrastructure that people start using, and then if, you know, I mean, yesterday Birgitta was telling us that there's a revolution brewing in Iceland, and the group is really forming using this Facebook page. She said to me last night it was up to 7,000. I haven't checked this morning. Richard, I don't know if anybody's checked, but that's in a country of 350,000 people. That's a huge fraction, growing rapidly. If that page were to suddenly freeze up on them for whatever reason, that would be a very serious problem.
So I actually think we're in a better position now than we were even maybe a year ago the last time we spoke. I mean, we have incredible people like Richard all over the world now, right? When it was even a year ago, 2 years ago, when we were just becoming a global site, we didn't have worldwide offices. Now we have an office in practically every time zone of the world, where customer support offices in Hyderabad, in Dublin, in multiple time zones in the USA. So I think that you'll find that getting responses is going to become better. We obviously have a long way to go. Managing questions coming in from 500 million people every day is no easy feat, but we're definitely trying to make progress there.
And other companies have, as they've gone global, have discovered it's not necessarily the same, what we take for granted, say in the United States related to the First Amendment, is not necessarily the same in Europe or in other parts of the world. So how are you managing that transition? I mean, is that also an issue of we're going to conform to the laws of each country the way Google does, or what's Facebook's approach to that?
I think thankfully we actually are in great dialogue with a lot of different government organizations and privacy commissioners. I mean, that Richard has more frequent flyer miles than anyone that I know. He is constantly traveling the world, meeting with people. You know what, it is really difficult to have a site. For example, we have a team that works on photos, right? When you deal with, people posing topless in Europe is like nothing, right? I mean, sometimes we take those photos down and people are upset. Meanwhile, you have the Middle East where you show a shoulder and people get upset. So, at some point we have to just draw a stake in the ground as a company as what we're going to do, but we don't do that in a vacuum. We do that after lots and lots of conversations. Okay.
So let's open it up for conversation, actually. I believe we have folks with mics. And I see some hands up here. This gentleman right in front, can we get a mic to him quickly? And then there was another hand up on the side here. Thanks, if you can keep it quick.
Could you just say something about languages, about how you help people to talk to one another across language divides?
Yeah. That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. The question was about languages. Facebook is available in over 70 languages right now, and what's most exciting to me about that is that all of the translations were done by Facebook users themselves. So basically what we would do is we opened up the APIs on our platform, a translation API, and someone in that country or region could sign up to be a translator. The site was actually translated into Spanish in about 48 hours, into French in about 24, and after the election in Iran, we expedited the translation of Farsi, and that happened in a matter of days as well.
Wow. Well, question over here. I saw someone with their hand up.
Oh, we have some funny languages too, like pirate English.
All right, you get it next. I see the pirate language. Yes, that's one of my favorites. How about Klingon?
We probably have that too.
Go ahead.
Well, about the groups.
Hold the mic close to your mouth. Yeah.
About the groups that you are analyzing, have you do any analysis to differentiate the strong and the weak ties between these groups? Because as you see, it's relatively easy to have a friend in Facebook, but it's a strong or a weak ties between these friends. I don't know if you have analyzed that in the groups that you presented.
I think, so you say how many of these people actually know each other in real
life?
Well,
he's asking if there's a way analytically, to go back to the peace project that you're talking about, to analyze how strong or weak these connections are. In other words, are people in conversation, or is it just a casual, I met someone, I'm friending them, and then...
That's interesting. So I think this is just a hypothesis of my own, but we have a very robust algorithm right now that we use for the news feed. So to determine which friends you see in your news feed, it's some combination of whose profiles you go to, who you engage with. If you see a story, do you click on it? So we should be able to use that same algorithm and that same data to actually look at the strength of your friendships on Facebook as well, across geography.
Other questions? Yes, this man here.
I had a different question, but I want to go back to the question about language, because I think that was not what the gentleman really was meaning. And the question is, users present their own, being a Web 2.0 website, it uses user content. Now, is Facebook in any way helping to translate the content of the user from one language to the other, not the website?
So, okay, so we're not currently doing that, but I think that that's probably something that is on the roadmap. or at least something that with the open APIs that we might look to some of our developer partners to help with. But I agree with you, especially I worked with the IOC on the Olympics recently, and we had to translate almost every single post we did into about 25 different languages. It would have been great if no matter what country you're from, it automatically translated into your language. So I definitely see the need for that as well.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about language translation. I think we're still far off from really good simultaneous translation. And maybe that's 10 years away, I don't know really, but when that day comes, I think it will be revolutionary, what the web will enable. I don't know what all the effects will be, whether they will all be good or not, who knows, but it's something to imagine. It's not that far off. Okay, other questions from back in the room? I want to go back to the Peace Project. Right now, when you go to Facebook, you use it, it's very user-centered. Yeah. The experience is really built around me. Mm-hmm. And what I'm wondering is whether you can see at particular moments in time deciding as a company that you want to be a little bit more forward-leaning. I'll give you an example of what I mean.
Great.
Craigslist occasionally has turned its homepage and put a prominent link related to, for example, Haiti relief or Katrina relief after the hurricane. And if you ask Craig about why he did that, his answer will be because the users were already using the site to organize so much activity around helping people, you know, find people who were displaced by the hurricane or helping raise money for Haiti, that putting that one link on the homepage, which, you know, gets billions of views. So can you imagine that maybe someday you will take a little corner of everybody's page and give it a social purpose? Or is that we shouldn't do that, we have to stay neutral, you know, that would be too proactive?
I think we waffle back and forth on that a lot. You know, the interesting thing is that no two people on Facebook have the same homepage. When you arrive at Facebook.com and I arrive on Facebook.com, it's a completely different experience, right? And that it's a beautiful thing, but it also makes it very challenging to convey messages. That being said, there have been a few moments where we have chosen in specific regions to actually take a stand. So for example, in the United States, leading up to the last election, we did a big voter registration push. We've actually done anywhere in the world where there's an election going on, we actually have something that comes up at the top of every single user's homepage that says today is election day in your country. I don't know if any of you have seen this in your country, but it says today is election day, have you voted? And if you click I voted, the number, the tally keeps going up. So you can actually see it going from, you know, 10,000 people, 1 million, 10 million, and we do this. I think we're actually running this. Brazil, I believe, is having an election that we're running this for in just a matter of weeks.
Right, but I mean, this is this funny thing about being a virtual country, and these are all sorts of questions that go way beyond what we can do in the next 2 minutes. And I know Facebook has gone through this process a little bit. We're asking users to help with the sort of terms of service discussion. But is it a private space or a public space? Is it like a shopping mall where basically the owners of the mall decide what the frame of conversation is? Or is it a bit more like a public space where maybe there should be some like Bill of Rights of behavior, or, you know, it's lovely to do the voting thing, but imagine if for your World Peace Project, one day a year you ask the whole world to vote on that question. 500 million people probably won't participate all at the same time, but 50 million, I mean, it's still a big deal. So is that conceivable? I mean, could we bring you back in a year or two and see that?
You know, I think it's definitely conceivable. It's definitely an ongoing debate we have in the organization about how much of a stand Facebook should take on issues, or if it's really even our place at all to decide what people should think is important in the world. I personally am on your side of the debate on this. I think that there are some things that we should be educating people about, but I think maybe we could come back here in a year and have a different take.
That'd be really cool. Well, thank you. Well, I really want to appreciate you coming, Randi, and hanging out and being here at the whole conference with us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And we will have you back to see how this develops on the peace
Can I
side
say just one thing to everyone? So
sure.
I've been so inspired by so many of you and what you guys are amazing evangelists for technology and the impact. I mean, I almost felt weird getting up here on stage after so many of you were talking about using Facebook in incredible ways. The one thing I would urge you is to remember that it's just as important to be an internal evangelist in your company, in your organization, as it is looking outwards, and that really your work is only as important as your ability to communicate the feedback you're getting from people back to the government and the organization in a meaningful way. So I just really urge everyone to think about that in your daily work.
Great, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.